has been an awakening. Have you felt it?
Open your eyes.
Take a moment to open your eyes.
Open your eyes.
The look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up.
Open your eyes.
You're listening to Apostate Awake, the podcast, available on iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube. I'm your host, Mr. Watchtower. You can follow me at Apostate Awake. And if you enjoy the show, you can give as little as $1 per episode at patreon.com/Apostate Awake. Episode 3. It's episode 3, and I am not joined by my co-host, Bonaventure, because it's actually her holiday, so Bonaventure is on a Bon Adventure. That actually probably helps us, really, because the interview with Lydia in this episode runs a little close to 2 hours, so in the interest of saving time, I'm just going to sort of keep everything as condensed as possible. It's going to be around 2 hours, so we'll move straight into it. Lydia is a former Jehovah's Witness. You can find her on Twitter at FinchLydia. We have a little chat about everything from shunning to the blood question as far as Jehovah's Witnesses is concerned. Noah, a little bit of everything. So without further ado, Lydia, everybody. Right, okay, so welcome to episode 3 of Apostate Awake. We have with us Lydia. Shall we say at Lydia Finch, or is it at Finch Lydia?
Yep.
At Finch Lydia.
At
Welcome
Finch.
to the show. Are you alright?
I'm good, thank you. Hello.
Yes, we've just been discussing before we actually began recording that for some reason we both decided to do this on a Sunday morning after the morning after the night before.
Yes, like heathens.
I've got my coffee in my Yoda mug, so that's going to keep me sane and hydrated.
You'll be fine. I've got two. So
Did you sort out your tea? Yeah.
I did.
Excellent. Okay, so on this show, I try to speak about things like religion, atheism, anti-theism, deconversion, things like that. Mm-hmm. And naturally, because of my deconversion story, obviously I used to be a Jehovah's Witness, for those of you that haven't heard before, that naturally draws attention from other former Jehovah's Witnesses. So this is one of the reasons why I wanted you on, Lydia. So just in simple terms, then we'll get into some of the finer details.
Okay.
I'd just like to give us a little bit of an introduction about your religious past or lack of religion.
Well, I was from birth brought up as a Jehovah's Witness. I'm one of 6 children. There's two of them are still Jehovah's Witnesses. The rest of us have left in various manners. And I
Two of them still are, sorry. Two of them.
Yeah, two.
Okay.
The eldest and the youngest are still Jehovah's Witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
I left when I was 17, so that is 20 years ago now. Long time. And that was, I mean, this happens a lot. I think kids leave when they're teenagers because of the restrictions and stuff like that, and I was not so noble as Lloyd. I didn't come to a big realisation that what they taught was wrong or incorrect, or I just went off the rails, I guess. and never went back. So that's where I am now.
That almost plays into their hands. Do you not think? Because I've heard these stories before. My brother was very similar. Where because you're under the restrictions, you lash out against those restrictions, mm-hmm. and it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because as you lash out, the Jehovah's Witnesses in the congregation and your family members can see you as like slowly becoming more worldly, and it turns into like they just see it for, they don't see it for what it is. They see it as you fighting against Jehovah, and no wonder you're having such a hard time because you're not accepting Jesus and stuff.
Yeah. Well,
did that happen with you?
Yeah. I mean, because it was the restrictions, but also I was kind of slowly getting to a point where I didn't feel like I fit in. I didn't feel accepted by the congregation at large, I guess. And so because of that, I went looking for that friendship, companionship elsewhere.
What was it that made you feel like you didn't fit in?
I don't know. I just I think you probably get this in a lot of congregations. It's very cliquey, so you'll have, especially like the elders' kids seem to be like the in crowd, if you like, and I just never. I don't know. It just got to a point where I just didn't feel right anymore. I didn't.
Yeah.
You know, my friendships, I'd known these people my whole life, but it was, you know, and then there was one, I was friends with one girl, very close friends, and she left just before me, and that for me was like the last straw, because I didn't feel like I had anybody left there.
Yeah.
So I went looking for it elsewhere, and pretty much the first offer I got, I went. So, okay then, bye. And that was, you know, a guy that I met, he 10 years older than me. I would say, in a blaze of glory. I went, and it was very, very quick, and it caused a lot of upset, let's say. And I know a lot of people will carry on their relationship, still going to the meetings and stuff like that, but it was very black and white for me. I was like, okay, well, no, I'm not doing that anymore, and I didn't go back to another meeting.
So, can I just ask, were you actually baptized?
Yes, yeah, when I was 16.
Okay.
So I wasn't baptized for long, was I? Before I decided.
No. I think just at this point, I think just to bring people into the circle, that I mean, we may use some terminology that people might not necessarily click into, but just so that people realise that obviously the congregation is a congregation, just like like parishioners go into the church. The church is called a kingdom hall. So when Lydia is speaking of the elders, or the elders' children, should I say? It kind of goes in like a hierarchy sort of format, where you have like your parishioners, and you have ministerial servants, the people that like help out. The elders obviously look after the congregation. Above them is what they call a circuit overseer, which is like a bigger sort of grander elder that looks after multiple congregations, and it keeps going up and up to right up to the what do they call the what's the word, Lydia? You know the people in New York, those guys.
The governing body.
Called? The governing body, yes, that's what they call.
Those old guys.
The governing body of old people in New York, who kind of like who kind of interpret the scriptures.
Who don't want you to wear tight trousers.
Yeah, they've got a real thing against tight trousers. What's he called? Morris something Morris? Jim?
Yeah. I was just watching
Morris.
something actually.
Something Morris. He doesn't want to see no bulge. Or
it's the
or visible panty line.
Yes, the homosexuals want you to wear tight trousers. I mean, I'm not sure what pleasure they would get out of somebody wearing tight trousers miles away. But still.
Yeah. I just wanted to kind of set the scene, just in case people were a little bit confused. Yeah. When I spoke to Lloyd Evans on the last show, I was explaining to him that I wanted to speak to a couple of different Jehovah's Witnesses. I've got a few more lined up in the pipeline. Mm-hmm. And I kind of wanted to get the view from different areas, because I always assumed that I was just like a one-off, and obviously that isn't true. But everyone has like a different story, and Lloyd's is very different, because he was he kind of drifted a little bit away from the faith. Mm-hmm. Then he was thrown straight back into it when his mum died. Mm-hmm. So there was like there was a solace like to it. And he was an elder. He was heavily into it, and now he kind of has this. He's thinking to himself, was I that into it, or was I just kind of brainwashed and I gradually came out of it? But you're very, very similar to me, because I finished when I was 15, just sort of like just towards finishing my GCSEs, which for the American audiences, that's basically I guess it's like your high school finals. Yeah,
mine was the same. It was literally. I think it was kind of that summer for me, that things changed just when I left school.
The GCSE summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, see, one of the things, the reason why your story interests me is because you're very similar to me, but just with one small difference. But it's a very, very it seems like a small difference from the outside, but as far as Jehovah's Witness is concerned, it's a big deal. I was never baptized, and you were. So when I left, I was simply viewed as like a lost sheep. I was someone who kind of like I didn't quite make the commitment.
Yeah.
So this is really strange because really we're talking about a teenager making a decision, and sometimes teenagers make bad decisions. So my decision was simply I wasn't really into it enough, and I was thinking quite selfishly at the time. There was no real basis in theology or anything like that. It was just purely I had a girlfriend that they didn't know about. And I wanted to have sex before marriage, and I wanted to spend time with my friends.
Don't they all?
That's the problem with them teenagers, isn't it?
One, yeah.
Yeah. So I just kind of I drifted, and I decided this isn't for me. Obviously, my parents were upset about it, and I was kind of like I was like the golden child because I was the final of the 3 children to sort of to walk away.
Oh, did you feel like a huge pressure to stay because of that?
Yeah, a massive pressure to stay because of that. Yeah. It was kind of like my heart was in my mouth when I was like explaining to my mum, and I wanted to tell her for weeks and weeks, but I just kept going to the meetings and just, sort of
just to not rock the boat.
Carrying on regardless. But my point is because I was not baptized, I hadn't made that commitment, which means the Jehovah's Witnesses they still treated me like a human being. They did patronize me, they did look down their nose at me because I'd sort of like I've gone against I've gone against all of the wishes, and I'm in some ways to some of the Jehovah's Witnesses I'm probably worse because I was like you. I was born and raised a Jehovah's Witness, so I knew nothing other than being a Jehovah's Witness. Yeah. So I think they thought that I had a great head start and I had all the knowledge, so why would I just not accept? However, I could be treated like a human being, and my parents would still talk to me. Everyone would still talk to me because I was just simply lost sheep. However, if you were baptized, it's a different story. So I'm curious, like how my experience of just waning away and doing whatever I wanted without too much pressure after that, how that's different to what happened to you.
Well, I'll go back to the beginning. So I met this guy, and very quickly I left home. I moved in with him. It was implied that if I married him, everything would be fine. However, the day after I got married, of course nobody was at my wedding. I called my mum to tell her, and at that point she told me she couldn't have anything to do with me. Now, I presume she had some pressure from outside forces. I've got 2 brothers-in-law that are both elders, so they would have pressured her. My sister has been a regular pioneer forever, so she would have had a great deal of pressure to make that decision. So, and I have seen her. I've talked to her probably 2 times in the last 20 years. And those have been at weddings, but weddings and funerals, I'm not sure why those are a special occasion, because they all talk to me at those family gatherings. So somewhere along the line, I don't know where that rule comes from.
What a way to make it awkward
weird,
at those
it?
sorts of events.
Yeah.
And that's purely just a social construct. That's got nothing to do with rules and regulations, surely, or is it just like
I don't know,
like a when in Rome kind of thing?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's because it's. I think if I can remember, there's the differentiation between socializing with disfellowship family members and like family events or something. I don't know. I mean, these are the things that make no sense to people outside, but complete sense to these people. So I've not seen I saw my mum, a couple of times. My little sister's 3 years younger than me, and she was at. I was closest to her. She has children that are the same age as my children. I've never seen them. She's never seen mine. So yeah, I mean, I've been, as I was saying on Twitter, I've had my brother-in-law look straight at me in the street and turn the other way.
Yeah, that's pretty special, isn't it?
Which is, I mean, that is really harsh. And at one point, one low point, I almost went back to get reinstated. But I mean, what they ask of you then at that point, I don't know whether they've changed it now, was you had to attend the meetings for 3 months, and go to that, the Kingdom Hall for 3 months and be ignored by everybody. I mean, it's like...
It was the same when I was there, yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. That is just punishment. It's just inhumane to do that to people. So
you were baptized, then you sort of then you had a bit of a rebellion. You met somebody, and were you disfellowshipped after meeting him, but before marrying him?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe it was all done pretty quickly because the elder. I basically wrote a letter saying, I know what I've done is against what you teach, and basically, I don't care. I'm not sorry. So it was there wasn't much.
How dare you?
There wasn't much of a discussion. It was like, yeah, I know what I've done. It's wrong. Whatever. I'm off. I'm going.
That's quite liberating, though, isn't it? You know, if you're saying to the elders, you know what, I'll do it again. Because
I'll do it again and I'll laugh.
Because what they really, really want is ultimate obedience, and that's so obvious and so clear. Even though they make out like they're just like helping you out, like what they want is obedience. So you saying that's pretty good. Like,
But it's just, it's great. You can literally do anything you want as long as you're sorry after. It's crazy. I mean, I get disfellowship, but people who are abusing children are fine because they say sorry afterwards. It's insane.
Yeah, and then they don't get brought to the authorities, much like the Catholic Church, but maybe just not quite on such a massive scale, simply because of the...
They're under the radar. That's the difference, is they're under the radar because there's not the huge numbers of them.
Yeah. I dread to think what's actually going on as well, because I've explained in previous podcasts that the clearest distinction that I can see between like a cult and a religion is like, Catholics, you can be a Catholic and do whatever you want, whereas like Jehovah's Witnesses, you have to adhere to very strict rules because you're either with us or you're not, kind of thing.
Yeah. Have you heard of the BITE model by Stephen Hassan?
The what model? Sorry.
BITE, BITE. It's basically the I know it sounds weird. It's the 4 things you need that differentiate a religion and a cult, and it is control of your behaviour, control of information, control of thoughts, and control of emotions. And he's basically he's called Cult Expert on Twitter.
Oh, and yeah, I follow him, yeah.
Yeah. So he has they're now in his book as a cult, because an ex-member went to him and said, well, they fit all of these things. And and he agreed.
Before you, as you were saying what BITE stands for, I was thinking, yep. B, yep. I, yep. T, yep. It's so clear once you're away from it. But when you can, go on. Sorry.
No, I mean this is the way they get you, is because you may remember, they will say, oh, this is a cult and this is a cult and this is a cult. Oh, we're not a cult, no way. And they convince you that they're not. And so you're like, no, it's fine. But it's only when, it's been 20 years, and I can only just see it now. And I think. And I've seen ex-Jehovah's Witnesses on Twitter, calling witnesses stupid and morons. I'm like, you can't say that about them, because then, it's nothing to do with being stupid. It's to be, if you are programmed from birth to believe this stuff,
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with your intelligence.
I see this numerous times when I've seen Matt Dillahunty speaking, and he always says, he gets annoyed at people saying, "Oh, Christians are just stupid," because there's so many people out there. There will be stupid Christians, of course, but Matt Dillahunty explains that he doesn't think that his IQ went up when he became an atheist. It was because it's not about your capacity for learning; it's more about what you believe, and if you can get rid of the things get rid of the beliefs that are based on bad evidence, you start to just see more clearly. It's not necessarily about being very intelligent, because I know Jehovah's Witnesses, maybe not so much now because I don't really speak to them, but I knew of Jehovah's Witnesses that had their own businesses and stuff. They're not stupid. They were fully functioning members of society, but
and when you actually really look at the amount of control they have over members and what they do, like to the finest detail, like how they have sex. I mean, that is high control. And I think it's difficult for people to see when they've not experienced it.
When you say how they have sex, do you mean about sex before marriage and stuff? Or do you
No,
mean
I mean
physically how?
Positions. Apparently, missionary position is anything else is depraved.
Really?
Apparently, yes. That's coming from somebody I know who has who's faded. And he was ministerial servant, and he was married. He's got a kid, and that's the only way.
See, I have heard that before, but I didn't know whether that was just whether people were just being silly because they have such control that positions during sex would also be like scrutinized.
That has. I mean, there's been information like talks and stuff. I mean, God, I'd hate to give that talk, but anyway.
That seems so crazy. I mean, many religions like to sort of deny biology, but to allow you to be married and therefore able to officially have sex as far as they are concerned, to allow you to be in the bedroom and allow you to have sex, all of that's fine. But then you
can't do that. That's
one of you turns over and suddenly Jehovah's not happy.
Yeah. So, oral sex is not allowed either. They're very specific
really
about that. Yeah, that was. I think that came out
I need to look
70.
into this. This is too good.
You need to. And there's some other weird. I mean, there's loads of weird stuff, isn't there? But what
I just didn't think it was quite so like right down to the minute details like that.
Apparently so.
I'm gonna have to ask Lloyd.
And ask him about the beard thing as well. That's also a weird thing.
Or about them not being allowed to have beards.
Yes, because my family don't. I don't talk to them. I asked this question through another sibling. She goes, no, that's nonsense. I'm like, but I remember that. How am I remembering this? But they have no recollection of it. But apparently it is a thing, because I asked somebody the other day and they're like, yes, I remember that as well. Weird.
I just don't. I can't even get my head around it. I can understand the that bite model that you explained.
Yeah.
I can understand. Obviously, they need to modify your behaviour because they want you to behave a certain way. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you can't be in the group. What was the I again? Information,
which means that they don't want you to. They supply you with what they want you to know. You're not allowed to go and research.
I think the information is a really big one, because the information therefore modifies the behaviour, because they're so hell bent on the control of information. It's obscene. It's like like I said, they feed you what they want you to know, and they actively discourage you from looking at outside sources. Yeah. So if you read a magazine, I was just reading an Awake magazine the other day.
Were you?
Yeah.
They got so these days.
I was just doing my research, and I like to read on the back of Awake magazines. They usually have an example of evolution, with like a question at the end saying, you know, ask yourself, did this come about by random chance or was it designed? Type thing. So I was looking at that and I thought to myself, they know what they're doing, and they're obviously trying to sort of sway you towards it being designed because they believe in God and they want everybody else to as well. So that makes total sense. But if you were to then think, if you were to think to yourself, well, I wonder if it was, you know, I wonder if evolution is right, and you started looking at evolution websites and, you know, listening to talks about things, they would actively discourage that. If you went to an elder and said, I was looking on this website. I was looking on this website, and it turns out they would actively discourage that. I remember.
I think you'd be in for some heavy counselling for that kind of behaviour. Yeah. Very heavy.
In order to modify the behaviour, so then they can control the information flow. It's a complete cycle, isn't it? I can't remember what the book's called. I think it's just called Creation with a question mark. I think that's what the book's called.
Creation or Evolution.
The Jehovah's Witness publication. Yeah. I think it's in that, or it may have been in a magazine. I can't quite remember because I was ranting about it at work one time because somebody brought. So sometimes my colleagues bring me things in that they get from around, just as a bit of a laugh because they bring in as soon as the door is closed and nobody else can hear us, they just throw something at me and just say, "What's wrong with that?" and then I read it and I start laughing. Anyway, I can't remember exactly which publication it was. I think it was the Creation one, but it quotes Darwin. You know the famous quote about the eye being a great design. I can't remember the exact quote, but I remember that the quote more or less ends, as far as Jehovah's Witnesses is concerned, the quote ends with, to think that this came about by these gradations, I freely confess, is absurd to the highest degree, or something along those lines. And then that's where the quote ends. If you're a creationist.
Yes, I read this.
and that's in one of those publications. So it's not so much about ignorance. When I saw that quote, that was like the nail in the coffin for me, because I thought to myself, but by this point I already understood evolution and everything. I was completely and utterly against religion at the time anyway. But when I saw that, I just thought to myself, wow, that is deliberately,
it's willful. It's not
it's willfully misleading, because for you to create that publication, you need to source the quote. And if you're creating it in such a way that you display that quote and you cut off the quote at the point where it says, I freely confess will be absurd to the highest degree. If you all you got to do is just look at the next couple of sentences, and again, I can't quote it, but obviously people have come across this a lot, but the next part says, but reason tells me that this.
I love how they ask you a question and then they tell you what you're supposed to think about that. Yes. If you were a thinking person, this is what you'll think. It's like, well, thanks for letting me decide that for myself. Yeah. That's great.
I always see the word consider, and it makes my skin prickle when I see the word consider in the publications, because because the word, if you come across a Watchtower or Awake, when you see Jehovah's Witnesses in the street, if you have a little look at what they've got, just look for the word consider, because you'll find it maybe every 3 or 4 paragraphs. So they'll sort of set up something that worldly people believe, and then it'll say consider, and then it gives you it gives you like the world's worst example of something, and you just think, well, that wasn't thought through, was it? And what they mean by consider is,
just think
this is what we're telling you to think, and you must think that also. And if you don't think that, you're not in the club. What's that about?
And one thing I would point out is that, I guess with any religion, I came from a quite extreme congregation, which didn't help. You get my sister said if they were another religion, they'd be called extremists, because everything is so serious and so very black and white, and I guess it's probably down to the body of elders that you have. They were very kind of restrictive, and I'm sure there are other congregations that are more lenient. I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago. She said she works with a Jehovah's Witness, and she never talks about her religion. Number one, which is a red flag if you ask me. But like
it goes against the Bible, if anything.
they went out at Christmas time. They went out and had dinner together, and they didn't exchange presents, but they had like turkey and they had like Christmas hats and stuff. And she joined in. I'm like, no, that's not how it is. that is very extremely lenient.
Yeah. That's flying in the face of it.
Yeah,
it's not. That's not just.
Yeah, because her point was, they can't. They must be. Some of them must be happy. I'm like, yeah, some probably are, and that was her example. I was like, well, if she was doing it properly, she probably wouldn't be as happy as she is right now. So
my leniency was strange with regards to things like Christmas and Easter. I don't know what your congregation was like, but let's say Easter's coming up and the chocolate eggs are everywhere. I always remembered like we weren't going to eat any chocolate eggs because it was an Easter celebration. Mm-hmm. So we weren't allowed chocolate eggs. You can have anything else, just not chocolate eggs. Mm-hmm. Then the very next day after Easter, and the Easter eggs go cheap, we can have 12 eggs a day. It's fine.
Because they're no longer Easter eggs.
Yeah. And it was the same with it's the same with like turkey and stuff. If it was like Christmas meal on Christmas Day, that's not right. Even though the Christmas meal doesn't really have any, like the actual, the actual food that you are eating doesn't really have any connotations to Christianity or whatever. But I used to work at Marks and Spencer's, and obviously as we were approaching Christmas. It would be closed for I think Christmas Day and Boxing Day. So over those 2 days, the food would be going out of date. So because of that, the turkeys and stuff would go quite cheap. So as a staff member, I was picking up like a £35 turkey for like £3 or £4. Yeah. So I'd buy like 6 turkeys, and I'd call my dad to bring the car around and just like load up with turkeys, but. Even though it was there and it was cheap and it was pretty much the only thing in their house, they wouldn't eat turkey until the Christmas celebrations had gone by.
Well, now here's a story for you that makes no sense. I sent my nan some flowers for her birthday. And she asked my mum to take a photo of them, and my mum refused because they're birthday flowers. Right? Yeah. Okay. But then they did after, not on my nan's birthday, but after my nan's birthday, they would eat the birthday. Do you see what I mean? It just there's no logic even to what they do.
I always think I always laugh when I hear the words "the devil's in the detail," because. It must be the devil in the detail, because God certainly isn't there. Because when you get down to the details, that's where everything everything falls apart.
And what is amazing is that when you're in it, you don't appreciate how many rules have been given to you that have no basis in the Bible whatsoever. You assume, because it's coming from the governing body, you assume that it's based on something, but you look at it when. And it just dissolves. Like, well, what is that even based on?
My brother got married maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and obviously with my parents being to the outside world, being very strange with certain rules and regulations and how to celebrate things. I remember them having a chat with my parents to see what was. Which parts are okay, which parts aren't, and my parents divulged that when glasses were raised to say cheers, that wasn't going to happen because that wasn't something that Jehovah's Witnesses do. So you can sort of like have you can.
That has no basis in it.
I think that's just I think it's just like a bit of a nod towards towards like celebratory times in times gone by where it's been I think it may have some kind of pagan connotations from back in the day, but it just seems a bit strange because under that social construct that's happening right there in that place, the idea is you're raising a glass to toast a future successful marriage, I guess, which Jehovah's Witnesses should be all up for. But I think they somehow view it as luck because they don't subscribe to, like the Jehovah's Witnesses don't say good luck. because they don't subscribe to look.
I know, that's another thing. Or bless you when somebody sneezes. I still don't do that. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Obviously, I don't believe in God. So.
I
Blessing
say
someone when
Gesundheit,
they
but
sneeze
I guess
makes
that's
no
just
sense
because I watch Jewish comedians and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of
So-
the arbitrary rules that you were just mentioning, where when you look at the details and you just think, this has always seemed like such a concrete thing to me, but why?
Yeah, I think when especially when you grow up with it, it's always been there. Like the like not celebrating birthdays. Also, that's very shaky reasoning. The only reason they don't celebrate birthdays is because the ones mentioned in the Bible, something horrible happened.
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
Nowhere are they. Nowhere you told.
as
not
soon as
to
you mentioned
celebrate
birthdays.
but that
As
has
soon as you
become a
mentioned
big
birthdays,
thing.
then I was going to say to you, what was your rationale? Like, if somebody says to you, "Oh, you used to be a Jehovah's Witness, why don't they celebrate birthdays?" That is the only way that I can explain it as well. It's just like,
Yeah, because now I actually say, you know what? I
Yeah.
have no idea what they're going to expect. But I was watching Lloyd Evans' most recent video this morning, and he was reading from some of the publications. It was it's actually one of the children's. Was it? I don't know which one it was. Anyway, and it was going into great detail about these birthdays and John Baptizer's head being chopped off and put on a platter, right? And he's like, "This is a kid's book," and it's just like, and I guess you get used to hearing these grotesque stories, so they don't even seem.
yeah, that's
weird.
the Mormons refer to the obviously Mormonism's got a lot of weird stuff to it as well, but they have this thing that they refer to as the milk before the meat, which means you sort of you get the easy stuff, and then you sort of you digest that, and if it's digestible and you haven't freaked out yet at its absurdity, then you get the more
Then
meaty
you
stuff
will
where you find out about
progress.
that God lives on a planet called Kolob and stuff. So it's similar in that respect, isn't it? It's like when you're young, if you hear these stories, you have like this romanticized view of what the story is, like Noah's Ark, where all the focus is on these good people sort of just surviving because they listen to Jehovah.
I mean, now, I mean, I can't. It's hard for me to believe that I never questioned that. Like the whole Ark thing, it's so stupid. It just makes no sense that they believed that was a literal event. I mean, these are not stupid people. Like, my mum is not a stupid person. But it's just, and I think the only way I can think of it is that they get to this point where they just think, oh, well, God made it happen. God can make anything happen. And that is that's the end. That's the end of any
major
reason.
cognitive dissonance.
Is-
I remember speaking
like
to my
God
mum
can do
and
it.
asking her about the whole incest thing. Now I was a
That's a
lot
favourite one.
younger, a little more naive, and I didn't have my sort of I didn't have a real good theological basis. This was just me asking a question, and she explained that, but she didn't really give me a biological sort of explanation. She just said that things were different in the Garden of Eden because everybody was perfect, so things were different. And I was like,
yeah, that's not the reason we don't have sex with our siblings. Not because we're not perfect. That is not the reason.
It's
That just
almost
makes
implying if
no
you are
sense.
perfect, having sex with siblings is okay.
It's
but
fine.
surely that would mean that that would
Yeah,
mean
maybe.
you'd lose your perfectness.
Jesus would have to have found another perfect, because in theory then he could have. He was perfect.
Yeah.
If he could find another one, he would have been
That's so strange, though, isn't it? But I remember thinking, I was just thinking to myself, all right, so things were different, right? Whatever. But it wasn't until a couple of years later I realised about the whole sort of condensing of the civilization down to Noah and his family members.
Yeah, because then it happens again. As someone pointed out, the world's been populated twice with incest.
And why was it populated a second time? Because an all-knowing, omnipresent God made a mistake, regretted what was going on, and changed it. Well, that doesn't make any sense just on its own.
Have you ever watched Eddie Izzard? He calls it the Etch-a-Sketch end of the world. just like shaking a no, I don't know what that is anymore.
Yeah,
Oh,
like,
well. I did that wrong.
It's amazing when you actually think about the details, you know, without sort of shaking your head and going, well, God can do anything. If you actually think about it, I used to just completely ignore the fact that with Noah's Ark that all of the people were drowned, and I just thought that's not a very loving God, is it? That doesn't make any sense.
That's not very nice. Yeah.
But the incest comes up over and over again, because you've got the Adam and Eve part where obviously the only way that they can carry on the civilization is to sleep with the children, or the children to sleep with each other. Then you've got Noah and the family, and all they can do is have sex with one another. And even though not all of them are direct family members, it's still not a wide enough gene pool.
No, because they'd then have to be. I mean, it would be cousins, first cousins,
and then
surely. But there's a lot. I mean, when you actually think about it, there is a lot of weird sex stuff in the Bible.
Like the woman.
It's kind of weird that
there's
so.
the woman who sort of fondly remembers all the times that she used to sleep with people who have large penises and their seminal emissions are like horses. Have you ever seen that? That's awesome. That's a real life biblical quote.
You know, and these people are so straight laced. Like my mum never ever talked about, you know, sex stuff. It's just weird. But when you actually look at the Bible, it's full of it. Violence, death, and sex.
Like really really weird bits, like the story of Lot, where after having, if you've never read this, I'm talking to listeners. If you've never read this, I'd totally encourage you to just have a quick look at it, because when I've paraphrased this to people, they've just looked at me and said, "There's not a chance that's in the Bible," and I've just said, "Just have a little look. Honestly, it's brilliant, right?" You've got a story of Lot, who apparently is the only person that's good enough to be saved from destruction, who first of all offers his daughters up for gang rape, then he escapes with his daughters and his wife. His wife is turned into a pillar of salt. Why salt? Nobody knows. Because she turns her head around and has a look at the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and that's it. And then,
I mean, she could have been looking back for any reason.
she might have been checking for her kids. Who knows? But then, so she's killed for looking over his shoulder. He escapes with his daughters, and then.
Doesn't he have sex with his daughters?
So more incest.
Yes.
So the progenitors of the church, they get their dad drunk in the mountains with wine that they apparently took from Sodom and Gomorrah, and on alternate nights they slept with their own dad and were impregnated by him without him even realizing, apparently. But
well, I'm skeptical.
Like, how would you not realise? Like, if you were so drunk that you didn't realise you were having sex with your own daughter, I'm pretty sure you're too drunk to have an erection. Am I right?
I mean, you'd have to be properly.
And who does he think he's having sex with up in these mountains if there's only him and his daughters around?
What they should have done. I mean, obviously the Bible happened and all, but I mean, they didn't really have to have sex, and they could have just collected the, sperm in other ways.
In what ways?
In theory. In theory, they didn't have to act.
Like a turkey baster.
Did they both? No, they did. Well, yeah, probably that would have been turkey.
Just some terrible wooden spoon instead.
Probably. Yes. Yeah, maybe they did actually. Yeah, but it's just I find it weird that they're so straight laced when all this stuff is in the Bible and all the destructions, like Lloyd was talking about the flood, and it's like, so all these, you know, these bad people are killed. They're so bad. It was like, but you know, really worse than a God that just kills everybody, nearly every single person on the planet. They're worse than that. It's like that statistic that you see sometimes knocking around Twitter. You've probably seen it where it shows a death toll. And it's like God estimated, you know, whatever amount of billions, and Satan's responsible for what, like 11 or something. Like, I can't remember exactly what it is, but I mean, is he actually directly responsible for any?
Well, I mean, I don't think that it. I don't think if you
don't
believing
think he
that
is.
if you're believing that there is a God and that He's all powerful, then He can't be, because if you sort of rewind to the point where Satan decides he's going to do these things, God knew he was going to do those things and created him anyway. That's weird, isn't it?
None of it makes any sense. I mean, when you really start thinking, obviously we've come to this realization before this point, but it's just, and like going back to the control element is, you just, when you're in it, you just don't. A lot of people, some people do, some people question it. But
I guess it'd be
don't.
remiss of me to have a Jehovah's Witness, former Jehovah's Witness, on the show, and not just have a quick chat about the blood thing, because that goes back to these arbitrary rules. Obviously, one of the only things that people actually know about Jehovah's Witnesses is that they refuse blood, they refuse blood transfusions. But like I was explaining with Lloyd, what is actually what in your view, what's the basis of no blood, or rather, what was taught to you?
I think, okay, as far as I understood it, the blood was the life force, and that's why you weren't allowed to take it into your body. That's
that's
all
it.
I know. That's,
Now,
I think so. But there, and then when I was growing up, there was a lot of their rationalisation was around, like AIDS, HIV, stuff like that. Oh, isn't it great that we don't have blood, because blood is all infected with this bad stuff?
yeah, they're quick to use they're quick to bring science on board if it's to help their cause.
If it fits in with what
so the whole HIV thing,
yes,
someone had a blood transfusion and contracted. I can't speak. Somebody had a blood transfusion and got I don't think it was HIV, but maybe it was, from the transfusion, and because of that, they sort of, the ball was rolling then, wasn't it, about we've avoided all of this, but they say that in their mind they've been doing the right thing since the very beginning. But that's like saying, look at all these amazing medical marvels that we have now. But a lot of the medical marvels that we have is due to war. But that doesn't mean war is good. It just means so many people lost so many limbs that they figured out how to reattach them and things like that.
We've really got to do something about these limbs.
It's just strange, isn't it? But when I was looking at why they didn't have blood, some of the justifications in the scriptures is strictly about imbibing blood, as in eating it, not taking it into your body for a medical purpose.
What? Yeah. Well, this is the thing. They find a scripture and then they extrapolate from that whatever they want to make up. I mean, and this is just not. This has real world ramifications. People are dying because of this stupid rule that they've made up. There's stories about a woman who's pregnant, her baby died because she refused blood, and it was talking about how traumatic it was for the staff to literally just have to stand there and watch it all happen. But again, it goes back to where is the scriptural basis for this? Well, doesn't seem to. It's not very strong. If it's there,
it's amazing how much people's behaviour can be modified in that regard, because I can understand cognitive dissonance when it doesn't really affect you so much and you just want to have cosy feelings. So you can sort of ignore all the people that drowned in Noah's flood and all that kind of stuff. You can sort of ignore that because it didn't directly affect you personally. But when it gets down to the fact where someone's saying you're probably going to die and so is your child, it amazes me that people don't just say, well, I'm gonna heavily scrutinise this because I would like to live and I'd like to have the transfusion if it's at all possible. Even if the final conclusion is, okay, I'm not going to have blood. Like, why would people not really?
Yeah, would that be a disfellowshipping offence?
I think it'd be on a case by case basis, I guess, wouldn't it? I think if you,
like everything.
I think it would depend on how sorry you are for a start. I'm
Number
very sorry
one,
I
are you sorry?
survived.
Oh,
I'm
sorry,
sorry
not
my
sorry.
child is alive. Like that doesn't make any sense, does it? But what doesn't make any sense to me, like the thing that totally destroys this in my eyes is that Jehovah's Witnesses, based on their conscience, which usually means don't do it, but if you do, there's not much we can do about it.
Oh my God! Do you just love that? Oh, it's a matter for conscience. Means you can't do it, but we can't tell you you can't do it.
It means we.
That is just that. I mean, how controlling is just that one phrase?
Yeah,
it's a matter of conscience. So if you were any good,
yeah, it's like we're not going to be mad at you. We're just going to be very disappointed.
We're going to look at you.
Which is that's it's strange because there's no what they're saying is we have absolutely no scriptural basis and no theological sort of groundings for this, but we'd like to be obedient in every way, shape, and form. Thanks. That's mad, isn't it? I was going to say that the thing that kills this for me is just that if you consult your conscience and you're happy doing it, you can have some of the constituents of blood. But it needs to come from original blood. So somebody like me who goes and gives blood, the blood can then be separated into its red, white blood cells, plasma, platelets, and they can receive one of the four. But like I said to Lloyd in the previous podcast, if you have a pint of white blood cells, a pint of red blood cells, a pint of blood, it's just
then
blood.
It's blood. Oh,
which is
ridiculous.
the devil in the detail.
And this is again, but also, there are people who could have had that years ago who are dead. Yeah. And then they change their rules, like, oh, we'll do this, or we'll make, it's just so they make up these stupid rules that are based on shaky reasoning, and then they'll, do something stupid like that. It's like, oh, well, maybe this, or we can do this, and we can almost do it, but not.
It's very specific with the blood as well, because if one of the justifications is that the blood is the life force, but then what happens if let's say you're gonna have a heart transplant? Like why would the heart not be your life force? And why if you had a brain transplant or something like that?
I looked at this because somebody asked after I did the other podcast. Somebody said, "So can you have like an organ transplant?" I was like, "That sounds like you could." That to me, that would be a no. I would say, but apparently they can, as long as it's been drained of all the blood. I mean. Right, so I can have other people's body parts in my body, but I can't have their blood in my body. That makes no sense.
I wonder if I've often thought this, but I keep forgetting to ask anybody. But maybe you might know. I wonder whether or not Jehovah's Witnesses are allowed to have like any form of dialysis where the blood is allowed to leave the body and then go back into the body.
I would think it would be okay because it's their own blood. But I mean that's based on logic, which they're not big on. So
because I know like my parents have had like various blood tests, so blood has left their body for a reason to be tested, but then that blood isn't allowed to go into anybody else.
I think it's as far as I understand, I think it's. This is the problem with trying to think about these things. Is that none of their rules are based on logic, so thinking about them in that way, you're not going to get the answer. Because they've got such a huge rule book that nothing is left up to your own reason. Yeah. They tell you how to reason and what conclusion.
Let's just run away from the blood scenario for a second. Just while it's in my brain, I'm just thinking because we talked about the creation book a little while ago, didn't we? And I was just thinking maybe you can clear this up with the whole creation. So, like Jehovah's Witnesses are creationists, whether they like it or not, because they believe that things were created at some point in time. But they kind of like they've kind of like fenced themselves in like a weird kind of area where everything that they use to justify their belief in creation is basically intelligent design quotes and things. So they kind of label themselves as creationists by doing that, but they don't necessarily believe in the young Earth theory of the 6,000 years. So what's that about, or rather, what is your understanding of that?
My understanding is that they. I mean, obviously, it was a while ago last that I was involved with their doctrine, but my understanding was that they do believe.
Oh, right, okay.
That they do believe in like
You see,
six avenues.
the way that I've seen it when I...
But they may be perhaps they're moving away from it because
That's what I was going to say. So I think a while ago it was just standard that it was a young Earth creation, but then as more information has come out and people have maybe sort of taken exception to it, what they say now in the publications is that because of translation and what words used to mean, the description of a day wasn't saying a day, a 24-hour day. Whatever the word was meant a passage of time. So what we're saying is, instead of it just being like 6 days and on the seventh day God rested, what they're saying is that one day could have been a day, it could have been 1,000 years. Like there's no way to actually define it.
Yeah.
But whatever the bracket is, they're still out by orders of magnitude.
And also, dinosaurs is a major problem here, because if you've got from the moment God started creating to whenever it goes to, I guess the end of time, Armageddon, whatever, in Revelation, then they should be mentioned somewhere.
Apparently they are, according to Ken Ham.
Yeah, I have issues
I forget what the
His
passage
take on
is.
things.
I don't want to bring my laptop too close to the microphone because it's making noises. But I can't remember what the passage is. It's but it mentions some large thing that's like got legs like tree trunks or something like that, and it alludes to like a large beast.
Right. So his idea is that we coexisted with dinosaurs.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's even worse. That's even worse than saying, that Satan put the bones in the earth to confuse people. But the thing is, once you have that level of nonsense reasoning, anything is possible.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I keep drifting towards Noah's Ark. Can you imagine? I keep drifting towards Noah's Ark on my log. I was just thinking that
Do you remember those pictures in the people just kind of going along?
Yeah, with their hands up, like kind of just going, no, why didn't I listen? Even though it apparently took him something like 70-something years to build it, they had long enough to listen, didn't they? I've lost what I was talking about now. Oh yeah, when you just said when you start making those sort of leaps, anything's possible. In the Noah's Ark scenario, it explains that the water covered to the highest peak all around the globe, which is obviously going to be Mount Everest, which would be the height of Everest all the way around the Earth, right? Which is more water than there is. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses or creationists in general just look at that as, well, God made some more water and then made it go away again. That's fine. Or water came up from the deep or something.
That's what I mean. Once you allow that level or that lack of logic, anything is possible. Oh well, he just made it happen. That's great. How did you fit all the animals in? Oh, he just did something.
When you just mentioned about the dinosaurs. One of the justifications I've heard for getting dinosaurs on the Ark was that was
the Ark. Awesome. That would go well.
What happened was, if you're willing to just suspend your disbelief for a second, what happened was dinosaurs are much like many other sort of reptilian sort of creatures, and most reptilian creatures, they begin very, very small, and what God did was he made them all sort of roughly a gecko size, and then.
Honey, I Shrunk the Dinosaurs.
and then when the Ark landed on Mount Ararat or not.
Did he actually do that with all the animals then? He made them miniatures.
Yeah, but if he had to make them miniature, I think the I forget exactly how much room the species had, but if you take like a conservative estimate, you end up with something like 0.6 millimeters per species, which those dinosaurs are very tiny. There'd
be whole species that would just be squashed. Oh, oops.
Did you
There
see?
go
Did you see
lions.
the Noah's Ark? The film that was out recently, the Noah's Ark film. No.
I couldn't.
When you saw Inside the Ark, I'm sure some people watched that all doughy-eyed thinking, oh, just imagine. But like when I was looking at it, I was just like, oh my God, they've got like, they had, there's like aisles where the family can just walk down with like these like 3 or 4 tiered, like a bunk bed system, where like they're just walking around like with aisles down the middle where, you know, there's so much room in that ark. They must have only taken about 400 animals.
Oh, good. I mean, and this is what I mean. It's just strikes me as bizarre that I never thought, oh, that doesn't sound very good. Doesn't sound like that would go down very well. But you're just trained not to question anything.
Yeah.
Not to because as soon as you are questioning, that's a bad thing.
Yeah, if you're listening to this podcast and you are a Jehovah's Witness, former Jehovah's Witnesses not so much, but if you are a Jehovah's Witness and you've, you know, plucked up the courage to listen to some apostate sort of stuff, I genuinely would like to speak to a Jehovah's Witness, and I know the chances of this are so slim that it probably never happened. But in an ideal world, I'd love to have a chat, not a debate. I'm talking like, I would love to talk to a Jehovah's Witness just to see how they rationalise it, because I don't want to do this in like a Bible study format where like someone who knocks on my door, you know, I speak to and ask the questions, because I know the parroted answers that will come my way. I already know what those answers are, but I'd like to just speak to somebody where I can just sort of pick it apart, so that I can figure out exactly where the cognitive dissonance begins. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think also it'd be interesting to compare somebody who's brought up as a Jehovah's Witness versus someone who goes to it later, because I can kind of understand, in our situation, I can kind of understand why we don't question it, because we've just been given that information from birth. But I think it'd be interesting to see how can you sell that to somebody as an adult.
That's actually, you've just reminded me that last Christmas I met somebody in that exact situation, so I might try and get him on, because that would make more sense. He's not a Jehovah's Witness anymore. I went to a friend's for like a Christmas meal, and I'd never met this guy before. And we were just, you know, everyone was just chatting, and then somebody mentioned, for those of you that don't know, before this podcast was called Apostate Awake, it used to be called the Watchtower and Awakening podcast, and I used to have a website called the Watchtower and Awakening, and a friend who was at the gathering sort of asked me how the website was going, and obviously the name of it kind of pricked his ears. So somebody pointed at him and just went, he used to be Jehovah's Witness as well, and we couldn't really go into depth, because, you know, this was like a random Christmas party with people that we hadn't met before and stuff, you know.
We're two ex-witnesses.
So that it would have been like a live podcast without a microphone. So I did say to him, like, you know, we'll have to have a proper chat about it sometime. So I might have to get hold of him and get him on, because he said to me that basically he was sort of religious when he was younger, then he wasn't religious, and I think he just got into a bit of a dark place, and Jehovah's Witnesses being, you know, usually nice people, they might do the wrong things, but 9 times out of 10, Jehovah's Witnesses tend to be quite nice, quite you know, caring, charitable sort of people, and they get you just at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, my mum was 17. She had 2 children, and she just moved to another area. So she was totally isolated. That's how they got on, and that's how they get people. And she's been there ever since.
Yeah, it's like an emotional crutch, not like an intellectual pursuit, I find. Now, again, I'm not saying that Jehovah's Witnesses are stupid in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying that if you have a support network that's given to you, and you hold on to that support network, it's easy to be forgiving of the things that would stop you in your tracks usually.
Yeah, because somebody asked me if you could get your mum to not believe it anymore, would you do it? And I said, no, not now. because her whole life hinges on it.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah.
If that now if that was not in her life, there would be nothing left of it.
Yeah.
So, she's made her choice, whatever, and she doesn't see me, which is regrettable.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want to take it away from her. I think at this point she's probably
especially when they're getting old. I mean, I don't know how old are your parents.
My mum must. God, I mean, no, I'm 38. So, I guess 7, maybe 70, maybe.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
mum's fast
She's not
approaching
that
7. I think she's 68. I think she is 67, 68 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're older and all of the friends are older, and they sort of like it's like a generational divide, and like her whole support
They're in for
network is
life.
Jehovah's Witnesses. The only people she speaks to are Jehovah's Witnesses, other than being on people's front doorsteps.
Yes.
That everything about her life
just
is
so
Jehovah's
bizarre.
Witnesses, and that
Yeah.
kind of goes down to
Every single element, every day,
Yeah,
every
yeah.
second.
well,
It's just-
I'm only known as Mr. Watchtower as far as like the sort of the public sort of is aware. Obviously, I have a real name, but one of my co-hosts, Norris, again, that's not his real name either, but one of my co-hosts, Norris, he's had a conversation with me a few times where he has quite religious parents, and his mum actually used to be a nun, and his dad was almost a Catholic priest, but sort of he fell short of it in the final year before he actually became a priest. So he has like a religious pedigree, but he also has quite understanding parents where like he can pretty much throw them any question, and they're quite happy to have a discussion about it, and it's fine. So he said to me a few times, you should just speak to mum and dad about exactly what you think, and I said, but it's different for you, like that's why I don't go by my actual name, because it'd probably be the last conversation I ever had with them.
I mean, I've thought about this a lot actually, and the fact that it highlights the amount of control they have, that people, even once they've left, to say anything about the religion, they don't want their name out there because of what will happen. I mean, that's crazy. They not only do they control you when you're in, even if you leave, they still have control.
Yeah, I must stress that I'm only really anonymous just because I don't want to upset them and break up the only contact that I have with them, which is strange.
Yeah. And I understand that's why.
But it's ridiculous
But
that I have
crazy
to.
that they can exert that control. They exert that control still, years after the event. I mean, what do you think? Have you heard about the new shunning policy?
Was that the link that you sent me?
Well, that was
Right.
the video. They brought out a very nice video about how to shun your children, and in it they throw their kid out.
Yeah.
Also in the video, it's like, that's great, that's nice. But I saw a clip of one of the talks of the summer convention. It must have been in America, I think. And they're now recommending that people who have faded, even if they're faded, if they're doing something they could be disfellowship for, then you should also shun them.
Even if they're not yet disfellowshipped?
Yep. So they have ramped it up somewhat, because obviously there's lots of people who are going to be affected by that. Because I mean that's why lots of people decide to just fade rather than go out in a blaze of glory.
So they're really trying their best then to have the "you're with us or against us" kind of thing. That it's almost like they're about to hit critical mass when they're sort of cutting off everything so that you're more entrenched, and then they're just going to evaporate. It seems strange to me that. Yeah,
they seem. It seems like a really desperate move. I mean, all the kind of, they're more, with all like the broadcasting thing. I can't even tell you how weird the broadcasting thing is to me, because that would have been something they would have been totally against when I was still in it. They would, if Christendom was doing it, they would have highlighted that to tell you that. wrong or bad or whatever, and now they're broadcasting. It's so weird. And like the kids' cartoons.
Oh yeah, did you see the
like,
the Jehovah's Witness kid cartoon that explains about when the girl comes home from school and she says that one of her friends has two mummies.
They got a lot of exposure
Wow.
over that, and I think more so now, the public are kind of seeing what they believe and what they teach. It's no longer just us saying, well, they teach this, and people go, oh well, do they? Well, it's probably not that bad. Now people can really see what they're telling people and what they're telling, their kids as well.
The one true faith.
The
truth, capital T.
I find it really hard not to call it the truth. And again, that's a way of control, isn't it? Especially
it kind of those phrases like like worldly, the truth, things like that. They just kind of just fall off the tongue. It's funny how it just like becomes just like a matter of fact. Like I remember my mum explaining about one of her friends who's a Jehovah's Witness, and she's a vegetarian. And it just made me laugh because she kind of just shrugged her shoulders like it was not like it was just a fact, no big deal. Because she said yeah, she's a vegetarian only because I like texture and stuff. Because she knows that we can eat the animals, and she said it like because the Bible states that we have dominion over them, so we're allowed to eat the animals. She almost said it like it was like. It's hard to describe how it sort of came about, but I remember just laughing inside my head and keeping my face straight, thinking she just shrugged her shoulders. Then just think, well, Jehovah says we can do whatever we want the animals, so she knows that obviously because she's Jehovah's Witness, but she decides to eat vegetation instead because that's more pleasing to her. But it's just an aesthetic choice. It's not because she loves the animals. Like, what does that mean?
So weird.
That freaks me out. She also said about a friend of mine once where she said, I mentioned that I used to work in Marks and Spencer's, and she went to Marks and Spencer's to get some things, use my staff discount and all that kind of stuff, and she was served by a friend of mine who happens to be gay, and she said yeah, he's what was their exact words, because there was a but. It was like. She said something like, he's quite effeminate. He's obviously gay, but he's a really nice guy. And I was like, why did you just stick a butt in there? And she was like, oh, And I was like, no. I said, you just said that he was gay, but he's a really nice guy. Like the gay part was like. Was offensive to you somehow, and it fizzled out into nothingness. It just turned into a bit of like, oh well, but like I sort of laboured the point a little bit because I just thought like, why do you get to say that, like, oh, he's gay, but he happens to be a nice guy even though he's gay? I was just like, that's a guy I work with.
I think, and you don't notice like the language and the way they talk until you're kind of way out of it. I heard two brothers, I presume, talking like in a pub, and they were talking about their dodgy plans of how to get round tax and stuff like that, but it is legal. It's like you are how they take it right to the limit of, no, I'm not actually doing anything wrong, I'm doing everything but the last step.
Well, that's from the scripture, isn't it, where they say pay Caesar's thing to Caesar, but God's thing to God. So they obviously, God is the highest authority. So if as long as it's not actually technically breaking a law, it doesn't really matter, because it's only God's law that really matters. It's the same with education, isn't it? It's like as long as you know your Bible and you're going to make it through to paradise, it's fine. Your secular education comes second. It's always been like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still all these years. I'm annoyed that I never got to go to university. Or I did. I mean, I left school when I was 16, and there's a huge pressure to do that and not go on to further education. And if you do, that's seen as being worldly. Obviously, you're away from home. It's crazy. It's crazy to me. These are things that impact your life forever.
Yeah, I mean, I managed to get to university, but that was weighing on my mind when I was when I was approaching the age where I thought, they're going to make me get baptised,
Yeah.
I did.
Also, there's a huge pressure, especially when you get to about 16, I think. There's a huge pressure to get baptised. And essentially, I mean, now with the, if they're going to now be shunning people who are, who fade also, you're making this decision at 16 that's going to impact the rest of your life.
Yeah.
If you decide it's not for you, you lose your family.
Sorry, go on.
But there's that huge pressure to do it.
Yeah, the education thing is a very peculiar thing because you'll be able to find this online if you're listening. You, Lydia, will probably already know this, but there's a couple of things that Jehovah's Witnesses have got very wrong. But one of the things that seems hilarious is that they have this they have this whole thing about millions now living will never die because they're expected to live forever on the paradise on earth, and that was published so long ago that there is not there are not millions of Jehovah's Witnesses left from that generation. So
didn't they get out of that by saying that overlapping?
They obviously sort of made the reparations later, but at the time of it being publicised, it was like this, published. Sorry, it was like, this is it. Millions now living. So you guys, all you Jehovah's Witnesses, a lot of you that are quite young, you're never going to die. But as far as the education thing's concerned, there's I can't remember which publication this is in, but you can find it on the internet. There's a publication that explains, and bearing in mind this was written in the early 60s, right? There's a publication that explains that there's no point going to university. And the reason there's no point going to university is because a university qualification is so that you can earn more money with a better job, which will sort of take you away from your ministry, preaching the good news to folk. So, and that's what matters, because we're so close to the final days that if you went to university and you got that degree, it would be more or less useless because you would never fulfil the career that the degree was first meant for. I mean, how crazy is that? That's early 60s. That.
Yeah. On that note, these same people that were talking in the pub were they were debating whether they could get a loan and not repay it because Armageddon would spin from here before they'd have to. I was like, whoa, guys, you need to step back.
That would be amazing. That would be like a Brewster's Millions type story. Like if you were ultimately convinced, which they're obviously not, because they don't behave as though Armageddon's on its way, because that would be a great thing to do, wouldn't it? Get a massive loan and just have a burster. Use that loan money to go and preach around the world and stay in top class hotels and stuff. You could just have an absolute ball knowing that you're never gonna have to pay it back. They can't be that convinced, can they? Just.
Well, also a few years ago, I know they started taking out life insurance and stuff. And pensions and stuff like that, which seemed to indicate they'd been told, oh, well, maybe it's not quite around the corner. It's not as close as we thought, so you might want to think about getting a pension and, life insurance and stuff, which was also a weird thing. But do you remember, I don't know when it was, but one of those prophecies, they put an actual date on, and they were getting people to sell their houses. And
that was quite a while ago. But the people did genuinely just sell up.
Because that was mentioned in Crisis of Conscience, I think. He said about that.
Yeah, people really did sell up. They were like living in their vans and stuff, just like going around with the most basic stuff.
And building houses for the prophets when they came back. Yeah. Okay. I mean, they were really convinced then. I'll give them that. At least they behaved like they believed it was going to happen. But I mean, I just, I know there were people in my congregation who were getting baptised at 12, 13.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a bit. Again, for listeners, if you're a bit confused by that, Jehovah's Witnesses don't they don't baptise they sort of do baptise children, but it's not like it isn't like when you're christened into the church.
Christened.
It doesn't happen when you're very young. You have to sort of answer a few questions and commit to a dedication and stuff like that. So it's supposed to be some form of like an age of reason where you decide as a person that you are going to you're going to commit your life to Jehovah. So yeah, that can be.
Or lose your family forever. Those are your choices.
Yeah. But they're not making you. They're just psychologically prepping you for the rest of your life, where you can't really do much. It's pretty constrictive, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. And and of course they won't do this, but I mean, logically, parents should be stopping their kids getting baptised, because if they change their mind, they lose their kids. Of course, they won't see it.
But then under the new shunning laws, like you said, imagine you've got somebody that just isn't 100% and doesn't really want to commit. Imagine they're like 21 and they're living with the parents. That you could imagine the scenario where they'll just be saying, well, now you're old enough, you're mature enough, you're able to make the decision. So make the decision. It'll turn into that, won't it? Make the decision, or else. That's how it'll turn.
Yeah, I was talking on Twitter this morning about because this the new guidelines, I'm sure they'll be calling them. There's so many questions like, well, what if someone's been what if they faded 10 years ago? What if they faded 20 years ago? Do we have to shun them now? And what is just celebrating Christmas? Is that enough to have? There's so many now questions of what deserves a shunning.
Yeah, because I guess that could be me, couldn't it? I don't really see myself as had faded or anything like that, just because I'm just so far away from it now that it doesn't. I've now not been a Jehovah's Witness for longer than I was a Jehovah's Witness.
I know, but I think the differentiation is, again, going back to being baptised. It's people who've been baptised and then become inactive. Whatever inactive means, that's another question. Do you have to put in a certain amount of hours to not be shunned? Do you, it's just bizarre. It's bizarre because it throws up more questions.
I don't think the elders and overseers, I don't think they even care about those finer details. I think what that is for is, so they can be like very wishy-washy with certain things. Like they can say, when it's down to an individual's choice, for example, and then they can decide at a later date whether or not that choice was right. And with regards to this shunning policy, they'll want it to be deliberately nondescript, so that if the elders are deciding that this person is to be shunned, they can say, right, this person gets shunned. And they can legitimately say it based on their guidelines, even though it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in the the video I watched this morning, someone had actually recorded the talk at the assembly, which was awesome. But they give this example of some grown up children, so they weren't living with their mother, and their mother had become inactive, and then their mother had done some sort of behaviour that was wrong, which could be anything, let's face it. And they had at that point started shunning her, and then went and told on her to the elders. That's lovely. That's a really great story about family relationships.
That the video that you linked to me, I'll put it in the YouTube version of this podcast. That, by the way, is the podcast is available on iTunes and Stitcher as well. But I'll put it on as a video on YouTube. In the link description, I'll put that video that we just mentioned before, where like it shows the wonderful story of somebody leaving their parents' household because they were being shunned, and because of their. It's weird because it's really done from the point of view of like the parents are upset but they're doing the right thing, and
yeah, I love the look they give her when she's sitting in the Kingdom Hall and they're announcing it's like really dramatically disapproving, and she walks out. It's just like, that's and what is amazing is that anybody who's not a Jehovah's Witness and has no experience with them will look at that and be like, this is crazy. This is
Yeah,
nuts.
as it does say in the comment
They
section.
don't see it. They don't. They honestly, I mean, they wouldn't have made it if they thought it was like that. But they can't. I just think at this point, they can't.
Well,
even see
it even says in that video, again, I'll link it in the YouTube version of the podcast. It shows in the video that the girl who has been shunned, she has no connection with her family anymore, and
not even to ask.
yeah, exactly, and then. It clearly shows that she calls the mum. The mum's like doing a bit of washing up, and she sees the phone buzzing, and I forget exactly how it's put across, but the short version is she's looking for contact from her family, and the Jehovah's Witnesses are obviously saying, look, family, don't have any contact with them whatsoever, because even that small amount of contact will be enough to make them feel a bit better and not come back to the faith.
It's just, I mean, how can you not see? How can they not see the level of control that is? I mean, that is coercion, obviously. Yeah. We know that, but I just think I think actually they've lost it now. Any kind of respectability, the more of these things that come out and get shared, the worse they look.
Yeah, I can't. I was going to say I can't imagine that they'd even be able to carry on much longer, but they survived this long, and there's enough people around that aren't going to question.
Okay, two things. Although they think technology is their friend, I don't think it is their friend, because part of their strength of the whole disfellowshipping, shunning thing was that people would, well, as we know, you would leave and you'd feel totally isolated and alone. Now, with the use of social media, people like me and you can reconnect, and you can have an actual community of people. So they no longer have that strength of casting you out and you being totally on your own. And with the new, I was talking to Covert Fade on Twitter about it, because he wrote part on JW survey about the new shunning thing. And he said he thinks that, I'm saying he could be.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it a he?
That it will turn a lot. There'll be more activists because of it. Because what have you got to lose?
Yeah.
There are people now who you know, like you will keep kind of anonymous, because they don't want to ruin the relationship they have. But if they take that away, there'll be a lot more people who will be very angry, very upset, and will be willing to talk out.
Yeah.
So I think the two things together. Oh, and there's the money thing, obviously, because they seem to be losing money and properties, and paying a lot in court cases because they can't control the child abuse. Yeah. So perhaps I think they'll probably carry on in some way, you know.
Yeah.
For probably a long time, but I don't see how they can. I don't see how they can continue.
I think this is a good opportunity just to advise people to watch Lloyd Evans's child abuse in the Jehovah's Witnesses organisation documentary. I think it's only like, is it? I forget how long it is, but he's put together sort of all the cases. You can see the cases for what they are if you just have a look online. But his is the first thing that I've seen that has kind of like collated everything together in chronological order, and you can just see how you can see the level of the level of abuse, but also the level of arrogance of the founder of the organisation as well. You know.
Yeah, and cover up, and just I mean, to me, when the whole commission thing was going on, I mean, that was stunning to me that is going on. I mean, I don't know why. Growing up in it, obviously when I was in it, I thought nothing like that would ever happen in the organisation. No. Just because you're led to believe these people are good, people, and if something wrong was happening, you trust them to deal with it.
Yeah, because they do.
But now you can see they're not. I mean, and it's the two witness rule is such a ridiculous,
Just
dangerous
explain to the
rule.
people that are listening what the two witness rule is.
What the two witness rule? Okay, two witness rule is that for an accusation to be dealt with, for an accusation to be taken seriously, there has to be two witnesses to the crime. Problem being that with child abuse, especially, or any kind of abuse like that, I guess adults as well, there's never going to be two adults. There's never going to be two witnesses.
No, just allow that to sink in if that's the first time that you've heard that, because the honest, like the scriptural sort of basis for that is that there should be two witnesses to a crime in order to do anything about it. So if you have a child that approaches the elders and says that they have been molested by a member of a congregation, the elders have the child's word and the perpetrator's word, and if the perpetrator's word is "I never touched that person," then there isn't another witness to the crime, so end of story. Can you believe that?
And also, it's what did they found out? I think it was in Australia. There were like 1,000 cases that had never ever been to the police.
Yeah, because
which is that's nuts.
Yeah, just like with the Catholic cover up as well. It's formulaic, isn't it? It's exactly the same sort of thing. The only difference between Jehovah's Witnesses and Catholics is just that there's not as many Jehovah's Witnesses. It's really that simple.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, I was stunned that they don't go to the police.
Yeah.
And
they're actively encouraged not to go to the police.
And I don't actually think most Jehovah's Witnesses even know this. I don't even think they know that rule. That's what's being applied.
No.
I think they assume that it's dealt with in a proper manner, because how could you be in a congregation with small children and be okay with that?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying people should probably
no
watch that documentary, because I think it would be great if, while Jehovah's Witnesses were out knocking on people's doors, just
bring that up.
Not necessarily to put them off, but just to genuinely get their response. Like if they want to talk to you about whatever's in the Bible, just say to them, just first of all, can I just ask you about your two witness rule for child abuse, and explain that to me for a second, because they probably don't know about it, and if they do, how do you rationalise it?
And how can you defend that? How can you? It makes me really, really angry. And I don't think they know about. I talked to a girl on Twitter. I'm on Twitter a lot. I do all my conversing on there. And she was a Jehovah's Witness, and she didn't even know about the commission for the child abuse cases. And when me and some others explained it to her, linked her to an article, she still was in complete denial about it. They write it off as apostate, making up lies because we want to make them look bad and stuff like that. And in the end, she was like, oh well, I said, how can you defend not going to the police? Oh well, we'll leave it with Jehovah and he'll sort it out. And they really believe that. And I guess they assume if nothing happens, then nothing happened.
That is just, yeah.
I mean, that for me, because although I left when I was 17, I really, truly still believed everything until about 5 years ago. So for a good 15 years,
really?
I was still convinced. Yeah, I was still convinced. I had nightmares regularly about Armageddon until about that time. I would have them and it was stuff like the images in the publications of very graphic.
Yeah.
Of Armageddon, aren't they? Like flame balls coming out of the sky.
Yeah, and
like crumbling
there being
buildings.
so many bodies that they can't even be washed away and stuff like that. It's very descriptive.
Yes. What brother was it? he said that there was going to be like, but so many bodies everywhere, and that, you know, and it was going to be horrible. I mean, kids are listening to this. It's like, this is really nice. And that he said he didn't know how Jehovah was going to deal with the bodies. He said that that perhaps he would use dark matter.
Oh yes, he did. Yeah, I did see that. Again, just throwing in a little bit of science if it helps you. If it helps your story.
I guarantee you, no one in the audience.
I was gonna say how would the layperson even understand how to use dark matter to get rid of objects?
To dispose. And so I think, you know, you grow up hearing that stuff. You and when you're in it, you kind of feel fine because that's fine because I'll be okay. But then if you leave and you still believe it, that gives you big psychological issues.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just assume that when you do leave, you leave because you're just like, right, I don't believe this. You know, I'm not on board with all these teachings, so I'm out of here. And it's like it's a real sort of positive move in your life. I think people think that that's how it goes. But I mean, when I left, I guess I was a deist when I left. I still had I sort of thought there might be a God, but I just thought Jehovah's Witnesses might have got it wrong, kind of thing. You know, I wasn't, but I didn't really have any kind of sleepless nights because I didn't truly believe it anyway. But to think that you would leave and think that because you'd left when Armageddon arrived, you were going to die. Yeah,
I was. I mean, as I say, up until about probably 5 years ago, I was every day, almost every day, I would think about dying. Every day. I was absolutely convinced. It was one of the reasons I wasn't going to have children, was because that's what I believed. It's just, and it's, you know, obviously.
Just the thought of having children and thinking, well, if I raise these children in this system of things, as they refer to the world, just the thought of having them, to have the angst, which I can see this from my mum's point of view when I said I wasn't going to continue, just to have the angst of raising a child in this system of things, and you firmly believing that when Armageddon came, if your child wasn't a believer, they were just going to be killed along with everybody else. Like, just the thought of that is bad, isn't it?
Yeah, I find that weird. And I also kind of find it weird that witnesses, you know, say they have children that leave, get disfellowship, whatever, that they're kind of okay with that. They're okay that they're going to live forever without their children.
Yeah, I spoke with Lloyd about that as well, because I was talking about how I teased my mum, and she got a bit upset about it, because I was basically saying, well, you know, you believe that there won't be any sorrow, which means you'll be able to sort of like step over my body and my sister's body and my brother's body and just walk into paradise, and you won't even give a toss about us anymore, you know.
Yes, bizarre, you know. But that again, as kids, you kind of do it as well. You know, that seems fine. It's just such weird mental gymnastics to be, you know, to be okay with it all. You know, all the Armageddon with all these, you know. I mean, when you really think about it, if you actually really think about how many bodies there would be and what it would actually be like. Yeah,
I mean, there's not even that many Jehovah's Witnesses, really, even though they keep preaching about being a worldwide organisation, which they are. But just, you know, their membership is such that we're talking billions of people that are going to die. So that would be...
That's why you need the dark matter.
Yeah, just a little bit of dark matter just to absorb all of the carcasses, I guess.
So, yeah, I also find one thing that's kind of... Because I didn't really take an interest in what they were doing for years and years. It's only really recent years I've kind of looked at what they're doing again. But like the whole branding of JW.org is just weird.
Have you noticed that it looks exactly like the White House logo? Yeah.
Oh, really? It's just weird. It's kind of weird, isn't it? I mean, and like they've got badges and stuff.
And they have the little it's like a advertising airframe type thing that they put the magazines in, you know, so they can stand next to the little cart and
weird.
sort of drag people in.
But do they still They still go door to
Oh
door.
yeah.
Do
yeah.
they? Because I'm sure they. Well, I'm a do not call, obviously. So they don't knock on my door, but I have seen them around. But I mean, they can't get any interest on those carts, surely.
Well, they must. Otherwise, I guess they wouldn't be there. I think maybe it's like a supply and demand type thing. Maybe that's just how they have recruited more people in the past. So they've done a bit of a drive with it. I don't know.
It's weird. I don't know. I mean, having gone door to door, I know how much interest there is. So I just wonder how much interest they can really get.
I remember being on the doors, and it's peculiar to think that it happened.
Yes.
You just mentioned that you're down as a do not call. So for a bit of advice for listeners, if you don't want Jehovah's Witnesses to keep coming back to your door, when you see the next Jehovah's Witness that is at your door, you can request to be put down as a do not call, which means that they'll sort of like strike you off the list. However, if they do come round, feel free to ask them about the 2 witness rule that we just mentioned. Before.
Yes, because I see a lot of things online. It's like, oh, if you don't want witnesses to call, you have to open the door naked or dress like this or do. I'm like, it's actually a lot simpler than you think.
Just say, I'm sorry, I'd like to be a do not
off.
call. Don't come back again, thanks.
Exactly.
Although that won't stop them from seeing you in the street.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Lydia, we're yeah.
Can I just mention one more thing? Can I just mention there's a group organisation called Faith to Faithless, which they are they're like a organisation for people who leave faiths, so like ex-Muslim, ex-Jehovah's Witnesses as well. And they are they're trying to help people when they leave, basically. So there's a website and there's a group on Facebook.
Did they help you?
But they want they now want some ex-Jehovah's Witnesses to help them help people.
Oh, that's good.
So if people feel like they're in a position where they can help in any way, then it'd be good to.
All right, great. So they're called Faith to Faithless.
Faith to Faithless, yeah. I think they have some. I think they had a meeting in Manchester, Birmingham, I don't know, and there was a Jehovah's Witness there who basically did a bit of a talk, but obviously it's really difficult with these high control religions, cults, because it's hard to get people who want to speak, especially like publicly. Even doing a YouTube video, I understand the ramifications of this. I mean, before I did the first podcast, I went through all that, like, what's going to happen? What would my family say if they find out? Whereas now I'm like, whatever. I mean, how much worse could it get?
Yeah, well, I wanted to do this, and I thought I went through all those things, but I just I sort of matched up the best of both worlds just by doing it anyway, being anonymous, and if they figure it out or somebody recognises my voice and they want to have the conversation, then fair enough, But I did my best to protect them, and if they want to have that conversation and choose to throw me to one side, that will be their decision and not mine.
Yeah, because I know kind of what I'm doing, and even the stuff I say online, I would be seen as an apostate, which has this big scary emotions tied up with it for Jehovah's Witnesses. Like, apostates are like the worst of the worst, and I know how my mum would feel knowing that, or classing me as an apostate. But it's been.
What does it really mean as well? It just means that you don't think the same as that person.
I know, but do you remember when, like, at the big conventions, like ours was at Twickenham, and they would have, the apostates would be outside the gates with their, publications and stuff. And my mum, wouldn't even let me look at them. That's how afraid she was. I wasn't even allowed to look in their direction, just in case I glimpsed a word on their publication.
Apostate literature.
It's just bizarre.
We're coming up to
I know,
it'll be
long time.
by the time I edit it down, it'll still be about an hour and a half. So even though
Too long.
No, it's good because I was wondering, with you having kids and stuff, I was wondering how much time I'd get. So I thought it might be half an hour, it might be an hour. I wasn't too sure. Just in the interest of people actually listening to it, because it might last a while. we'll have to wrap it up. However, before I wrap it up, I was just going to go back to briefly when you said about you don't think technology is Jehovah's Witnesses' friend, and I think that makes sense because the saying that the internet where religions come to die, I think has been proven successfully, and the internet did really help me as well because. Not necessarily when I left, because there was a few years went by when I left before I even bothered looking into it at all. Yeah. But it was only really YouTube videos of people like Christopher Hitchens and things like that started to make me think about just theology in general. So I didn't really come at it with a sort of, I hate Jehovah's Witnesses and I want to find out what they've done wrong. Yeah. It was just more like maybe there's a God, maybe there's not. Maybe there is a religion that is the truth. Is it Jehovah's Witnesses? Is it not? And then the more I found out, the more ridiculous everything seemed to be. Yeah. So I don't really think I think that without the internet, it would have taken me much longer to figure out what was wrong. Like people like Lloyd can be sent. They can be sent a PDF and within an hour upload a video about something that the organisation has done. Yeah. And 20 years ago, we would just never have found out that information. That's
true. I mean, that's I kind of I stopped believing about 5 years ago. That was when I heard it was a podcast actually called Skeptoid, and that was about the Exodus and basically explaining why this didn't happen. This was not a thing that actually happened in history. And it was actually from that then I started to look into other stuff. So I kind of lost faith, I guess you'd call it, through skepticism and science and stuff like that. So that again,
I was the same. Just began with Genesis and then sort of looked into evolution. It took me about 18 months just to get off that.
That's a lot of information.
But when you realise that something that people believe and have told you to believe your whole life, when you realise that something like that is actually just in real terms is impossible by definition, you sort of think to yourself wow, I just took that for granted.
Because from that point I was very much, if that's not true, what else is not true? And it kind of all unravelled from there.
And really, to me, that they're only this. This might seem like a harsh yardstick, but to me, there only needs to be one thing wrong, because I think that a flawless, infallible God wouldn't get things wrong. So if there's one thing that Jehovah's Witnesses believe, or any religious people believe, that is completely and utterly wrong, which there's hundreds of examples, but even if only one of them is, then everything falls apart to me.
Yeah, so I know a lot of seems to be a lot of people who stop being Jehovah's Witnesses, but they're still religious, and I couldn't do that. But
or they sort of bounce from
they'll go to
from
a
religion
different
to religion.
Yeah, I find because that's the way I came to it was okay, well, actually, for me, the Bible is not true. That is not a true account of things. So I was like, well, if that's not true, then all of it's not true.
And people do take the Bible as they just take it as a historical record. If you're willing to believe,
anyone who thinks that a historical record has not read it properly.
Yeah, I mentioned about my mum, sort of just just blasé, kind of she knows we can eat the animals, that. It's the same. It's the same with the Bible. There's sort of just just an off the cuff response would just be like, Well, yeah, because obviously we know that happened because it says so in the Bible, and it's not a joke. That to them, it's a
Yes.
historical record, and if it happened in the Bible, it's happened, and that's it.
Yeah,
and you don't realize until you have a little look into how the Bible was put together, and the historical record based on other writings that have nothing to do with the Bible, you sort of realize that nothing actually matches up.
Yes, but it's like, and that's I guess that's what's great about having talks and basing them on 3 scriptures, or a few scriptures. Is you never look at it as an entire document. You only ever look at bits.
Yeah, and people really should, Penn from Penn and Teller says, read the Bible because we need more atheists, and nothing will get you there faster than reading the damn Bible.
Yeah, what is amazing is that online, a lot of religious types assume that atheists have not read the Bible. It's like,
yeah.
I think, and from what I've seen, atheists seem to have a better understanding of what's in it than religious people.
Yeah, well, based on any poll you care to look at, that's true. It kind of goes in levels, and the people that self-identify as agnostic or atheist almost always come out on top.
Yeah, so
fact.
Fact. There's a fact for you.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess we're gonna have to wrap up,
yeah.
but we were just talking about the whole technology thing,
yeah.
and how it helped me when I was sort of trying to figure out how things were going on. I guess based on the way that your sort of religious pursuits or escapes have been, I guess my final question really would be, what advice would you give to either Jehovah's Witnesses that are questioning, or people who have just left the faith? What would you advise?
I would really try to connect with other people, other ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and I understand at first it's I think you have to go through. For me, I had to go through like a buffer between the two, because I think even when you first leave, I think it feels weird, but just to find other people, try to find other communities. Have you found like a proper online community organised?
Myself,
Ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. It seems difficult because I've seen a couple, but they also seem to be targeted by Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I haven't. I think the closest I've found is like the JW survey that Lloyd runs. Yeah. But I guess that's mostly just because I didn't really need that particular support.
Yeah.
So mine was just sort of like, after having left and not believing any of it, really, it was just more of like an intellectual pursuit about what people do believe and why they believe it. So because I didn't actually need that support network, I didn't really look for it. So if anybody wants to sort of like link us up on Twitter or something, we can sort of, we can distribute that.
Just find other people, and just know that they should be, if it's true, they should be okay with you researching it. They should be okay with you looking for information outside of the organisation.
Yeah, something that's true should be able to hold up to scrutiny.
They shouldn't. If this is true and right, they should be totally okay with you questioning it, because it should come out right in the end.
Yeah, what's that famous quote? Something along the lines of, "If you want to know who rules you, just figure out who you cannot criticise."
Yeah. So,
and if that's the elders, then
because
they're ruling you.
Yeah. When questioning the governing body and their teaching is, you will get counselled or whatever they're going to do to you. I mean, that is essentially saying you cannot question anything. They make you believe you're questioning it and give you the answers. That's the problem, and you need to verify it from sources.
Yeah, so if you are questioning, do genuinely look into, you know, look at the publication, have a little read, and when it says things like consider,
Yes.
consider, and then it tells you what to consider and what you should think as a Jehovah's Witness, then have a little look,
Yeah.
you know, like genuinely consider
Yeah,
it.
Crisis of Conscience was a really good thing for me to read as well, because he was there. He was right in the governing body, so he knew what happened. That is a great document to read.
Yeah. Yeah, so have a little look at that. Right, okay, we'll have to wrap it up there. Obviously, if you'd like to come back again at some point, and by come back I mean on the show, not physically.
Yes, I'd like to get reinstated. I'm sure they'll welcome me with open arms.
Yeah, I've got some guests lined up, so I'll invite you back again at some point when we can do a few things specific. Cause I've done the same with Lloyd and with other people. Like I've got a bit of a general thing, but I might pick a few like specific topics. So instead of like a getting to know you like this was, more of like a let's stick to creationism or you know, dinosaurs. or the blood question, or like, you know, whatever, so we can do something a bit more specific. Okay.
Cool.
So thanks ever so much for being on Apostate Awake, episode 3. Lydia, everybody.
Thank you. Yay!